Busy Monday, and Lopetegui, according to reports, seems like he has gone, and Graham Potter is the next man to take the reins at West Ham, who I think, overall, I'd have to say, just a bit of an identity crisis. Lots of excitement. They did win the transfer window. We all remember that. And it was one where you've got a real mix of players here. And I think the thing that really shows it off visually for me when it comes to Lopetegui and his inability to kind of just get a foothold in the season is that David Moyes' transitional style, ability to counter-attack, sitting back, and they just weren't able to hit the ground running. And I think you see here, so this is on Who Scored, and you can see the squad list. So players playing in different positions. 5 different defensive midfielders this season. So many different players playing in different positions. Jared Bowen playing as a striker, Danny Ings, Fulkrug, Antonio. You know, attacking midfield on the left-hand side. You've got a left-back playing there. It's just been a bit all over the place. And in terms of where they are in the league, they're where they deserve to be. I think the one cruelty, I would say, is the fact that you've played Liverpool, then Man City, and that's when you're going to get the sack. That does feel a little bit cruel. But Man City have actually been there for the taking, haven't they, this year? Maybe they're starting to find their feet. But with West Ham, that idea of identity crisis, you've got a lot of players here. Let's just go back to it. You've got a lot of players here that you've got a few techie guys, and you've got a few guys with speed that worked really well under David Moyes. You've got your Součeks, who's been solid for them this year. But you've also got your Pakatars, and you've got just a weird mix of... Well, I say a weird mix. It's a good squad. It's a squad that they've spent a lot of money on, and it hasn't clicked at all. Todibo, hot and cold. Max Kilman came in for big money, Premier League proven. Wan-Bissaka's actually been one of the bright sparks. And actually, some of those players, when Souček's one of your main guys, and when Wan-Bissaka, with all due respect, there are certain players, I've always had this kind of theory, that when things aren't going right, those guys who are solid 6 out of 10 and give everything, those are the ones that start to look great, and you don't want that happening. We see this a lot. We've seen this so many times. It's dangerous. You go from one identity to another identity. Here, we kind of found ourselves in the middle with Lopetegui. And as I say, never really got a foothold. Don't totally understand what he was trying to do. It wasn't exactly how we thought they would play. I think people thought there might be a bit more control, a bit more quality in terms of possession this year. I think they've got 46% or something like that, certainly under 50%. So they're not controlling games, and they've got players that would allow them to control games. I think you've got players there that could work really well in a position-based or positional play system. And when Graham Potter's coming in, I think this is really an interesting one. I think it's a great move for him. I think the potential in that squad is pretty huge for me. I think there is a problem with some players being not as technically as great as other players. It's not wholeheartedly going one way, but that's going to take time in terms of going from one place to another place. And that's actually where I quite like Graham Potter, because I think you're going to step into the pressure, not the pressure of Brighton, not the pressure of Chelsea, but closer to that scale. This is a club that has been in Europe, that has spent a lot of money, that has a huge fan base, and that fan base will let you know if things aren't going well. And the expectations have changed. And so you've got a manager that needs to be able to deal with that kind of pressure. And I think Graham Potter going from maybe Brighton to Chelsea, that felt like an untenable situation for him, but he did get eaten alive. Could he get eaten alive, West Ham? Maybe. Do they need someone who's a bit more bulletproof? I think he's a very nice guy. Do those kind of managers get eaten up at West Ham? I don't know. You've got Slaven Bilic, who's had a good period, didn't he, overall, I think. You've got Pellegrini. Is it Pellegrini, Kai? Yeah, it was Pellegrini. Pellegrini, again, nice guy, did a solid job, and then kind of came to a natural conclusion. But in Potter, you've got a manager that will absolutely have that hunger. He will absolutely know how to elevate from a sort of sturdy squad. Obviously came in, took over from Chris Hughton, and evolved that to a team that played really good football, good system, controlled the ball, controlled the game, and were often kind of unlucky, weren't they? There was a bit of a meme, wasn't it, about their XG was really good, but they couldn't finish off the chances. And that might have been a personnel thing where you didn't have those quality strikers that Brighton have right now. And by the time he got that Chelsea job, they were starting to fire. I think there's a lot of players that could do really, really well at West Ham because he would be stepping into a squad that has some really, really exciting players. Of course, Bowen's injured right now. Antonio's obviously injured as well. But there's some players that will absolutely thrive. And I think thrive in the sense of being able to have a bit more control in a game, own the ball that little bit more, take their time in terms of working their way up the pitch. I think could be the end for the likes of a Souček. Someone like Soler, I think there's so much potential for him to do better in a team that you know where everyone is, you're controlling the game, you're sort of picking through them, and having that positional play idea. I think that's something that could work for Paquetá, who's been poor, really, really poor. I think players like Somerville's not really been given a fair crack of the whip, and is someone who played for Leeds last year in a team that was high up the pitch, was dominating the opposition. And I think that's what West Ham fans want to see. They don't want to see them kind of curling up into a ball and being sort of solid. That is a solid squad in certain areas, but actually there's so much more potential there. Someone like Fulkrug, again, I think someone like him would absolutely thrive in a well-run, kind of calm, coached system. And you saw that for him at Dortmund. You know, he's a really, really good player, and they've spent good money on him, and he should be doing better. So there's 3 players off the top of my head that just will absolutely do better. It'd be interesting, you know, they've been often kind of, their real threat is kind of in transition, or I think we've still got you've got the embers of the David Moyes era, and that's kind of what's kept West Ham maybe even out of the relegation zone right now, because Lopetegui, it just wasn't connecting, and I don't think the inspiration was being seen out there. They looked like they were getting overrun a lot of the time. That shouldn't be happening. And maybe it's that disconnect between some players who are, as I say, a bit techie, maybe not as athletic as other players like Bowen or Antonio when he was playing, and Kudus as well. So that cohesion within the team needs to be found. But one thing the Potter's been very good at is letting wingers thrive, but also, you know, think of a Matoma, think of a Trossard. Good players and different players, and him finding a way for it to suit both. I think Potter is probably the best you can get right now. And the other interesting thing here is, are they jumping the gun before Everton sack Sean Dyche? Because I think Potter is kind of up there on the list for a lot of mid-table teams. So let me know how you feel about this, West Ham fans, if this is one that gets done. I think that might be the play here, but what do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. Subscribe as well. We're nearly at 15k. Thank you very much.